At this time, I always tell you a little bit about what's on my mind. So, anyway, one of the things that this Torah reading, this parasha, makes clear is that Korach, the person this Torah portion is for whom this Torah portion is named, was a very clever man. In fact, it is very possible that he was at least as intelligent and as powerful a leader as was Moshe himself. But what's unfortunate about this is that instead of using his highly advanced, intelligent, and leadership abilities to make Bnei Yisrael a better nation, he used his talents to hide and twist the truth with the sole purpose of gaining power and prestige. Sounds like our modern political field, huh? Anytime, actually. It's been like this since I can remember, since I'm a little kid. Anyway, if we consider all the great things that his capabilities could have allowed him to do, why did he choose to use them to challenge the authority of Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe, our teacher? Rashi, if you know who he is, he's the great French biblical commentator that most people quote. A brilliant man. He teaches us that Korach believed he had a right to be a leader of Bnei Yisrael because of his yichus, his lineage. If we think about it, it is hard to argue that point. Moshe's grandfather was the son of Levi. His grandfather had 4 sons of his own. Moshe and Aaron were from their grandfather's oldest son. Korach was from their grandfather's second oldest son. And this guy, Elizaphan, was from the grandfather's 4th and youngest son. Why do I mention that? Our Torah clearly states that God commanded Moshe to appoint Elizaphan, the youngest child of the youngest son, to preside over the rest of his cousins. Oh my God. Korach, he was incensed by this. You really think about it. Can you blame him? But it was God who commanded this. Moshe didn't make it up. But Korach was mad because Moshe, how could he do such a thing? How could he pick this young kid to rule over me? I'm so smart and everything. He felt that he had a right to his birth order in the family to have been given the appointment that Elizaphan was given. So Korach, again, was a narcissist, and he was motivated by jealousy. He was consumed by the need for honor, for prestige, and for power. That's all he cared about. His motivations were not for the welfare of Bnei Israel. That's obvious in the Torah reading, but purely for his own self-advancement. So how he presented his case to Bnei Israel was nothing less than masterful. So in Bamidbar, chapter 16, verse 3, it says, "You," meaning Moshe and Aaron, "have taken too much on for yourselves. The entire nation is holy, and God is among them." In other words, God is with the whole nation, not just you two. Why do you place yourselves above God's nation? In other words, Korach presented himself to Bnei Israel as having only their interests in mind, certainly not his desires, his selfishness. So Rashi goes so far as to say that what Korach was really implying is that, quote, "I only care about you. Those 2 guys, Moshe and Aaron, came and took all of the greatness for themselves. They are nothing but phonies." So says Rashi about Korach. That's what he said Korach was saying. So this reminds me of what happens again during our political debates and on cable news channels for the last umpteen years. I hope I'm not surprising you by saying this didn't just start today. We've all seen it since cable news started. We have all witnessed how the partisans on both sides argue. They desire power and respect, and they don't really care much about the truth at all. We all know their tricks, but those with whom we agree, we excuse, even though they raise what we call machloket, which is irrational disputes. So the ones we agree with, no matter what they do or say, they're okay. We excuse them. It's all right. They can stretch the truth. The other guy's a liar. This guy stretches the truth. They're the same thing. We believe that we believe that what they say have our interests at heart, the ones we believe in. The reality is, and I hope I'm not I'm not giving you a surprise here. Every single one of them are shkutzim, and they are only interested in their self-interest, regardless of how good or how bad it is. So it's a question of which one is not as bad as the other. So often they talk over everyone else, so the opposition can't be heard. Some call this rudeness, some call this arrogance, whatever we call it, it is the symptom of a very serious disease. Today, it is prevalent on both sides of the aisle. And what makes this so tragic is that this disease did not die with Korach. It did not. That is because this disease of needing and striving for power at all costs is one of the tools of Yetzer Hara, which is the evil inclination. And it uses this power to drag us down. What makes this so sad is that the Yetzer Hara is usually very successful. The Yetzer Hara, like we saw with Korach, easily attracts followers because it masquerades things that are really bad for us and makes them appear to be really good for us. Some people call that marketing. Just look at the products that we see on television. They call them healthy when we know they're giving us cancer. I'm sure that each of us sat at the dinner table when we were children, and at least one had our thoughts go something like this. When my brother or sister looks away, I will take a piece of their cake. If we're too old to remember doing it ourselves, I'm sure we can remember our children doing it. And if we're too old to remember them doing it, certainly we've seen our grandchildren do it. So what is happening that makes people behave that way? It's the Yetzer Hara. It takes over our minds. Then if we listen carefully, and you got to listen carefully, our minds will tell us, but you shouldn't steal. That's the Yetzer Hatov, the good inclination. And it tries ever so gently, ever so gently, ever so lovingly to remind us what is right. Just as Moshe tried to defeat Korach. The problem is the Yetzer Hara is often much stronger than the Yetzer Hatov. It knows how to get us to do what it wants. It easily takes us over by making us think that what it is telling us is truly in our best interests. But doing what it does, the way it does it, the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, makes the Yetzer Hatov, the good inclination, look like it's a foreigner, like it's an outsider, like it simply does not belong. The Yetzer Hara positions the Yetzer Hatov as being mean and stupid, and we all buy into it. Who here has never given in to the Yetzer Hara? Don't tell me you have never done it. We all have, and we've done it more than once. The reality is that we all really know that the Yetzer Hatov is truly what is good for us. Deep down, we all know that the good inclination only wants the best for us. In today's parashah, in today's Torah reading, God put the Yetzer Hara in its place by destroying Korach and by reintroducing the responsibilities of Moshe and Aharon to Bnei Israel. How many of us have done something wrong and said, it's just a little avera, it's just a little sin, it can't hurt anyone. I'll just do it once and get it out of my system. That's because we fall for the great trick that the Yetzer Hara plays on us. It makes us think it will only be here for a short time. Then it promises that it will never bother us again. And we give in to it because it seems so nice and so comforting. This is only one way to beat the Yetzer Hara. There's only one way, and that is to turn it into an outsider the way it does to the Yetzer HaTov. We need to do that just as it happened in today's Torah reading when God held the Yetzer HaTov, the good inclination, over the Yetzer Hara, the evil one, by destroying Korach and all his followers and his followers' families and offspring. So in the Midrash Rabbah, it talks about Parshat Korach. It talks about today's Torah reading. And it points out how serious the crime of perpetuating disputes is. Rabbi Berachia ben Natronai Karispia Hanakdan. So it's Rabbi Berachia. He says, how severe is the crime of disputes? For heavenly Beit Din, the court in heaven, only punishes offenders over the age of 20. The Beit Din, the rabbinical court on earth, only punishes criminals over the age of 13. However, when the disputes of Korach happened, the earth was commanded to swallow up even one-day-old infants. That's what it says. And so it says in Bamidbar 16:27, the women, children, and babies, they and all that was theirs, descended alive in the pit. We read that today, or I told you that today. So there is no question how severe the punishment for instigating and maintaining disputes is in the Torah. There's just no question about it. Even little babies were punished for the sins of their parents. And if it does not teach us to stay far away from instigating and keeping disputes alive, I don't know what else could. When we see a fire burning, we all know enough to keep far away from it because we know that the fire will burn and destroy anything and everything that gets in its way. Northern California is going through this as I speak again. As over 30,000, maybe more by now, over 30,000 people have been evacuated from this out of control fire that's going through their neighborhoods in Northern California. It's happening now, today. Who wants to go near it? The story of Korach teaches us that just as we run from fire, we must not just run from instigating and perpetuating disputes. We must also try to make and keep peace and calm, just as Moshe tried to do. You know what this is called? Making shalom bayit, making peace in the home. May we all learn shalom bayit from Moshe and Aharon, and not how to make disputes from Korach. We shouldn't learn from him. We should learn what not to do from him. May we all work to make and keep shalom bayit in our everyday lives, in our families, in our communities, in our neighborhoods, in our clubs, in our workplaces, in our conversations about politics, in every situation in which we find ourselves. Shalom bayit is the right course. May we always open our door wide for shalom bayit and the Yetzer HaTov, the good inclination to enter. And may we slam our doors hard in the face of the Yetzer Hara. This is especially true during these highly charged political times. There's no excuse to break up families and friends over political arguments. There is no excuse. It's just plain Yetzer Hara doing its work on us. Do not let the Yetzer Hara bring out our anger against those with whom we disagree. It isn't worth it. Let the Yetzer HaTov win. Let it win every day, every time, allowing us to build Shalom Bayit between all of us. As hard as it might be, I want to wish you all a Shabbat Shalom.